Hello, everyone. I can see that some people are still logging on. But welcome to the launch of the Diversity at Sea, the Journey to the Sustainable Crewing Guidelines report. This report is the result of a nearly 2-year project. And today we're going to be introducing a little bit more the project, what the project is about, and the main results of the report, and talk about what we're going to be doing next. Guess I've met many of you or most of you before, but if not, then I want to shortly introduce myself. My name is Harpa, and I'm a project manager in the Human Sustainability team at the Global Maritime Forum. And today with me, we have Susanne Justesen, who is the Director of Human Sustainability at the Global Maritime Forum, and Zoe Sakura Okahara, who is also a project manager in our little team. And they will be taking over shortly, and I will be here in the background managing the chat and crossing fingers our tech will function properly. So, Suzanne, if you want to take over.
Thank you, Harpa, and welcome everyone, and an equally important happy Day of the Seafarer to everyone who is a seafarer or have been, and to all of us working closely with seafarers. The theme this year is bullying and harassment, which is one of our guidelines. So we, of course, applaud this theme of the year and are excited to see all the things coming out from that theme today. Let me introduce the agenda for today. We will briefly introduce the Diversity at Sea project. We can see that many participants here have also been involved in the project. So welcome to all of you as well, of course. So briefly about the project, and then I'll hand over to Zoe afterwards, who will dig a little bit deeper into the guidelines. Then we're inviting you to have a brief conversation in smaller groups to explore what these guidelines, how they can be applied and used, and what you would and how we can get them out there in the world as well. And then we look forward to sharing our plans for continuing to learn together with virtual learning sessions at the end of this webinar. But welcome also from me, and let me tell you a little bit more about the Diversity at Sea project, which was, as Harpa said, launched actually a little more than 2 years ago. We first kicked off actually in November 2022, where we within the Orderboard lines, where we are a little more than 30 companies all working together, and there was an alignment that we really need to work together on making conditions and culture at seas more inclusive and attractive to all seafarers. So we started working with more than 20 companies initially to really explore and try to understand what are the challenges out there. And we were particularly keen to better understand what were the challenges experienced by women. So the first data gathering really focused on identifying the what we call key pain points that were experienced by women by doing more than 100 or 115 interviews to identify 15 key pain points that we then worked together to co-design solutions towards, and quickly learned that the pain points experienced by many women were the same that were experienced by men. So already then we focused the setup of the process towards targeting all seafarers. After about 6 months of working together, co-designing solutions, we embarked on the phase 2 with the pilot project, where we invited the companies involved that would be interested in participating in the pilot. And we had said we needed a minimum of 3 vessels and no more than 12. And we're really pleased to see that 12 companies did indeed decide to join us for the pilot. You can see all of the names here: Bernhard Schulte Management, BP, Cargill, Chevron, Diana Shipping, Dorian, Gaslock, Hafnia, Stena, Synergy, and Swire Shipping. All invested 1 vessel into the pilot to work with us to really learn and explore whether the solutions we focused on, whether they actually worked, and how we could learn together to develop a set of guidelines for the industry as a whole. These were the 15 pain points that we aimed to address. And in the top left corner, you can see a picture of one of the big tankers from Gaslog, who had this big banner showcasing that they were part of the pilot. And what we did on board the vessels was that on a daily basis, we engaged with the seafarers, which in total ended up being more than 400. We sent out questions on a daily basis to understand what sort of, for instance, how important is it to you that the PPE fits your particular body type as the first question, and the second question, how satisfied on a scale between 1 and 10 are you then with how well it actually fits you, so that we could learn what worked well and also where we needed to make adjustments. And then in parallel with that, we had engaged pilot leaders from across the 12 companies working closely with us to really learn together on what works well, collecting best practices. And it was this process where we met in person twice, which was a great opportunity to also get to know each other across companies and really co-design and align on, so what should be our main guidelines from the project, which then resulted in us during Singapore Maritime Week launching the 9 guidelines. And then we've been working in parallel on producing a report where we share a little bit more details, because the guidelines are fairly simple. So now I'll hand over to Zoe, who will take us through some of the findings from the report. And we will, of course, also be sharing a link to the report that was launched today, hoping that you will all want to give it a look. So over to you, Zoe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. So alongside Suzanne and Jostje Vornik, who I believe might be here virtually, I was one of the authors on this report, The Journey to the Sustainable Crewing Guidelines. I'll take you through the findings, which fall into the 9 areas, which map onto our Sustainable Crewing Guidelines. And there's more detail about the guidelines themselves in the Sustainable Crewing Guidelines document. But today I'm going to talk you through a little bit about the findings that came before the guidelines. So the first area that we found is quite important for seafarer welfare is building a culture of respect at sea. Unfortunately, many seafarers experience disrespectful or belittling treatment, especially female and young seafarers. And you can see here that in our study of seafarers outside of the pilot companies, about 40% of women don't think that their competencies are valued and respected. And this takes many forms, but often it is the case that people experience these belittling comments, like some men say that women cannot do this and women are not suitable for vessels. We found in our study that senior leaders play a key role in creating a respectful culture. And particularly through the pilot, we see that clear behavioral guidelines and training make a difference in contributing to better teamwork, productivity, and motivation. We see in this quotation here, a seafarer told us, "Yes, I do experience a more positive culture on board the pilot vessel. The crew is collaborative and supportive, which makes the work environment much more enjoyable." So following this, our first sustainable crewing guideline is establishing clear expectations of respectful and professional behavior. The next area is looking at strengthening trust in safety protocols. So we want to make sure that seafarers feel safe at sea. Reporting mechanisms are an essential part of that. We found that in our comparative study, almost half of seafarers either don't or don't know if they have access to an anonymous helpline. And in many cases, even if they do, sometimes seafarers don't trust that if they do report something, it won't somehow come back at them through losing their job or having gossip following them or such things. People say, "I want to know that the company I work for will have my back in case something arises." We found that good reporting mechanisms are confidential and they provide support and protection from retaliation. And when that is in place, seafarers say things like, I feel safe as I strongly believe in the mechanisms in place. So following these findings, the Sustainable Current Guideline 2 is all about zero tolerance and clear consequences for unacceptable behavior. The third area is about creating fair procedures for career advancement. So many seafarers talked about experiencing unequal career opportunities depending on who their captain or whoever they're working under is. And you see this especially where criteria for tasks and training and appraisals are less well defined. And people say that in those cases, personal biases seem to play a greater role. People say things like, people often judge by gender, stereotypes are still very popular. This is one of the areas where we see the greatest difference between pilot company seafarers and seafarers outside of the pilot companies. When we asked, how satisfied are you that tasks are assigned in a fair way, regardless of nationality, gender, or personal preference, we see that seafarers in the pilot study were much more satisfied that that was the case rather than outside of it. So we see here that consistent and supportive practices that enable all seafarers equal opportunities to succeed lead to higher job satisfaction and motivation. So the third Sustainable Current Guideline is setting rank-specific criteria for tasks, training, and appraisals. The next area is about providing seafarers with the right tools. And so here we talk about personal protective equipment. We know that when it doesn't fit properly, seafarers are exposed to the risks that it's supposed to protect them from. In this example, the seafarer told us, we struggle to work in the larger gloves. You don't have fingertips to do things like nuts and bolts, so you have to remove your gloves. So in this case, you see, there's really no point of the PPE being there. There's also stories of people, the gloves being so big that your fingers don't reach the finger parts. It's not really useful at all. PPE is generally made for an average male body, making it ill-fitting to everyone else. And as you can see, there's lower satisfaction among women that their PPE fits them properly. Another aspect of seafarers having the right tools is about sanitary facilities. And that includes access to sanitary products and also discreet and hygienic disposal. When companies and the pilot companies made a very particular effort to ensure that the seafarers had the right PPE, had the right sanitary facilities, we found that the impact of that was that it increased seafarers' sense of belonging and trust with the company. So some feedback was the company always strives to provide us with the best quality PPE and actually cares about our safety. I'm wearing a smaller size than usual as a woman, which was provided by the company and fits me well. So our guideline in this area is for companies to ensure appropriate equipment and facilities for everyone. Our fifth area was about enhancing connectivity. Internet connectivity is just so important nowadays, not just to stay in touch with family and friends, but also for access to information, and so, including learning and training, entertainment, sometimes also banking, exercise apps. There are so many reasons that it's important for people to stay in touch. In our survey of seafarers outside of the pilot companies, 46% of seafarers have only 1 gigabyte or less of free data per week, and which is really quite little. In a broader picture, connections beyond the ship are crucial for seafarers' well-being. And here we see shore leave is super important. We also see that most seafarers have very little shore leave. In our comparative study, I mean, over 3/4 have either none or less than a day of shore leave per month. Our guideline for this is to provide a reliable daily connection to the wider world. Our next guideline is about creating community. So it's not just about connections to the outside world, it's also about connections within the maritime community. And we find that social isolation can be alleviated by seafarers having someone to talk to who understands about being a seafarer. As this person noted, good relationships with co-workers while working for an employer who cares is sufficient to overcome loneliness. We found that seafarers who are the only person of their nationality, language, or gender on board are more likely to experience loneliness, often because they feel excluded or unwelcome. As this person said, it is a hassle to fit in. You have to make extra efforts to be recognized as part of the crew. This is also an area where the pilot seafarers have much higher satisfaction than outside of the pilot. We see that a sense of community can't be taken for granted. It must be cultivated through giving seafarers, a reason to come out of their cabins, all of this stuff. So therefore, our guideline for this area is reduce isolation by building supportive communities. Now, the next area I'll talk about is improving contract conditions. We know that seafarers' contract length preferences for contract lengths differs. Some prefer to earn a lot of money at once, and some people find that length of sea time psychologically untenable. What's really important, though, is about ensuring that the contract conditions are respected and that seafarers know, roughly at least, when they're going to get on and off the boat. As this person noted, I don't know how long I will be on board. And this other respondent told us, 2 trips in a row, I had my trip length extended beyond my contracted length, which makes it impossible to plan anything on my leave and disrupts my expected time at home. We saw that in our workshops, this is a challenge. This is a big challenge. And addressing it will also involve broader issues of planning and manning. But is one that's very important to seafarers. So our guideline here is offer flexible contract lengths and respect contract terms. Our next topic is the need for family support at work. Most seafarers who are new parents face great professional and financial uncertainty. A lot of companies don't have any policies, and people worried say, if I got pregnant, I'd lose my job. This was one of the areas where we saw a lot of dissatisfaction. There is a widespread perception that a career at sea is incompatible with family life, but a lot of seafarers don't want it to be that way. As this person said, I would like to have a happy family and become successful in my career. If my employers can help me in that matter, I will continue to sail for many years. Another aspect of this is that it's not just about maternity leave, we're also talking about paternity leave. It's also highly valued for male seafarers. As this person said, the father also deserves to stay with the newborn for some time and provide support to the mother. So we therefore recommend that companies provide paid parental leave. And then our final area is all about getting feedback, staying connected with seafarers. The feedback that we got from conducting this study is that asking questions has a positive impact on trust. It feels good that someone cares. But another aspect of it is that it's really important for companies to respond to that feedback and outline what they're going to do with it. Otherwise, seafarers experience survey fatigue. If you ask questions, you must take action. If I don't see any follow-up, why should I continue to answer the questions? So that's why the last sustainable career guideline is continuously collect feedback and take action.